It's me, Lord Sci-Fi, and we're gonna be reading this book. Like I said, I'm going away for 3 days, so I'm gonna be gone for a while. So this is the last time I'll be reading to you guys. So I hope you enjoy it. It is a pretty long chapter, so let's get started. Anakin counted paces as he trotted along the turbo lift shaft. Obi-Wan over his shoulder and Palpatine at his side. He reached 102, only a third of the way along the cunning spire, when he felt the gravity begin to shift, exactly the wrong way, changing the rest of the long shaft from ahead to down. He put out his free arm to stop the Chancellor. "This is the problem. Find something to hang on to while I get us out of here." One of the turbolift doors was nearby, seemingly lying on its side. Anakin's lightsaber found his hand, and its sizzling blade burned to open the door controls. But before he could even move aside the sparkling wires, the gravitic vector lurched toward the vertical, and he fell, skidding along the wall, free hand grabbing desperately at a loop of cable, catching it hanging from it, and the turbolift doors open, inviting, safe, and mockingly out of reach. A meter above his outstretched arm, and his other arm was the only thing holding Obi-Wan above a 200-meter drop, down which his lightsaber's hand grip now clanked and clatters, fading towards infinity. For half a second, Anakin was actually glad Obi-Wan was unconscious, because he wasn't in the mood for another lecture about hanging on to his lightsaber right now. And that thought blew away and vanished because something had grabbed onto his leg. He looked down. It was Palpatine. The Chancellor hugged Anakin's ankle with improbable strength, peering fearfully into the darkness below. "Anakin, do something! You have to do something!" "I'm open to suggestions," he thought, but he said, "Don't panic, just hang on." "I think I can." The Chancellor turned his anguished face upward imploringly. "Anakin, give me your hand. You have to give me your hand." "And drop Obi-Wan? Not in this millennium." "Don't panic. Don't panic," Anakin repeated. The Chancellor had nearly lost his head. I can get us out of this." He wished he were as confident as he sounded. He had been counting on the artificial gravity to continue to swing until the shaft turned back into a hallway, but instead it seemed to have stopped where it was. This would be an especially lousy time. This would be an especially lousy time for the generators to start working right. He fixed a measuring glance on the open lift doorway above. Perhaps the force could give him enough of a boost to carry all three of them to safety, but that was an exceedingly large perhaps. Perhaps. "Obi-Wan, old buddy, old pal," he thought. "This would be a really good time to wake up." Obi-Wan Kenobi opened his eyes to find himself staring at what he strongly suspected was Anakin's butt. It looked like Anakin's butt. Well, his pants anyway, though it was thoroughly impossible for Obi-Wan to be certain, since he had never before had occasion to examine Anakin's butt upside down, which it currently appeared to be, nor from this rather uncomfortably close range. And how he might have arrived at this angle and this range was entirely baffling. He said, have I missed something?" "Hang on," he heard Anakin say. "We're in a bit of a situation here." So it was Anakin's butt after all. He supposed he might take a modicum of comfort from that. Looking up, he discovered Anakin's legs, his boots, and some astonishing close-up view of the Supreme Chancellor, as Palpatine seemingly balanced overhead, supported only by a white-knuckled death grip on Anakin's ankle. "Oh, hello, Chancellor," he said mildly. "Are you well?" The Chancellor cast a distressed glance over his shoulder. "I hope so." Obi-Wan followed the Chancellor's gaze. Above Palpatine rose a long vertical shaft. When he finally realized that he wasn't looking up at all. This must be what Anakin had meant by a bit of a situation. "Ah," Obi-Wan said. At least he was finally coming to understand where he stood. "Well, lay, hung, whatever." "And Count Dooku?" Anakin said. "Dead." "Pity," Obi-Wan said. "Alive, he might have been a help to us." "Obi-Wan?" "Not in this particular situation, granted, but nonetheless. Can we discuss this later? The ship's breaking apart." "Ah, a familiar electrosonic Feru weep came thinly through someone's comlink. Was that R2? What does he want? Was that R2? What does he want? I asked him to come activate the elevator, Anakin said. From the distant darkness above came a clank and a shirt and a clog, all of which evoked in Obi-Wan's still somewhat addled brain the image of turbolift brakes up, locking. The accuracy of his imagination was swiftly confirmed by a sudden downdraft that smelled strongly of burning oil, followed closely by the bottom of a turbo lift pod hurtling down the shaft like a meteorite down a well. Obi-Wan said, "Oh." It seemed like a good idea at the time. "No need to get defensive." "R2, Anakin shouted. "Shut it down." "No time for that," Obi-Wan said. "Jump! Jump! Jump!" Palpatine asked with a shaky laugh. "Don't you mean fall?" Actually, yes, Anakin let go. They fell and fell. The sides of the turbo shaft blurred and fell some more until the gravitic vector finally eased a couple of degrees, and they found themselves sliding across the side of the shaft, which was quickly turning into the shriek of the shaft, and the lift pod was still shrieking toward them faster than they could possibly run, until Anakin finally got the comlink working and shouted, R2, open the door. R2, open the doors. All of them. All floors. One door opened just as they skidded onto it, and all three of them tumbled through. They landed in a heap on a turbolift lobby's opposite wall as the pod shot past overhead. They gradually managed to untangle themselves. All of your rescues so, Palpatine gasped restlessly, entertaining. Everyone gave Anakin a thoughtful frown. Anakin returned it with a shrug. Actually, now that you mention it, Obi-Wan said, yes. Anakin stared into the tangled masses of wreckage that littered the hangar bay, trying to pick out anything that still even resembled a ship. This place looked as if it had taken a direct hit. Wind howled against his back through the open hatchway where Obi-Wan stood, with Chancellor Palpatine, and scraps of debris whirled into the air, blown toward space through gaps in the scorched and buckled blast doors. None of those ships will get us anywhere, Palpatine shouted above the wind, and I had to agree. What are we going to do? Anakin shook his head. He didn't know, and the Force wasn't offering any clues. Obi-Wan? How should I know? Obi-Wan said, bracing himself in the doorway, rope whipping them in the wind. You're the hero, I'm just a master. Past Obi-Wan's shoulder, Anakin saw a cadre of super battle droids marching around a corner into the corridor. Master, behind you. Obi-Wan whirled, lightsaber flaring to meet a barrage of blaster bolts. Protect the Chancellor, and let you have all the fun. Anakin pulled the Chancellor into the hangar bay and pressed him against the wall beside the hatch. Stay under cover until we handle the droids. He was about to jump out beside Obi-Wan when he remembered that he had dropped his lightsaber down the turbo shaft. Fighting super battle droids without it would be a bit tricky. Not to mention that Obi-Wan would never let him hear the end of it. Droids are not a problem, Palpatine. Droids are not a problem. Palpatine pointed across the hangar bay. Look. On the far side of the bay, masses of wreckage were shifting, sliding toward the wall against which Anakin and Palpatine stood. Then debris closer to them began to slide, followed by piles closer still. An invisible wave front was passing through the hangar bay. Behind it, the gravitic vector was rotated a full 90 degrees. Gravity shear. Anakin's jaw clenched. This just kept getting better and better. He unspooled the length of his utility belt's safety cable and passed the end to Palpatine. The wind made it sing. Kinch this around your waist. Things are about to get a little wild. What's happening? The gravity generators have desynchronized. They'll tear the ship apart. Anakin grabbed one of the zero-G handles beside the hatchway, then leaned out into the firestorm of blaster bolts and saber flares and touched Obi-Wan's shoulder. Time to go. What? Explanation was obligated as the sheer front moved, then passed on the wall became the floor. Anakin grabbed the back of Obi-Wan's collar, but not to save him from falling. The torque of the gravity shear had buckled the blast doors, which were now overhead, and the hurricane of escaping air blasting from the quarter shaft blew the Jedi Master up through the hatch. Anakin dragged him out of the gale. just as pieces of super battle droids began hurtling upward into the hangar bay like misfiring torpedoes. Some of the super battle droids were still intact, enough to open fire as they flew past. Hang on to my belt, Obi-Wan shouted. Hang on to my belt, Obi-Wan shouted and spun his lightsaber through an intricate flurry to deflect bolt after bolt. Anakin could do nothing but hold him, braced against the gale. His grip on the zero-G handle was the only thing keeping him and Obi-Wan from being blown out into space and taking Palpatine with them. This is not the best plan we have ever had, he shouted. This was a plan? This was a plan? Obi-Wan called. We'll make our way forward, and Obi-Wan shouted. There are only droids back here. Once we hit live crew areas, there will be escape pods. Only droids back here, echoed inside Anakin's head. Obi-Wan, wait, he cried. R2's still here somewhere. We can't leave him. He's probably been destroyed or blown into space. Obi-Wan deflected blaster bursts from the last two gale-blown droids. They tumbled up to the gap in the blast doors and vanished into the infinite void. Obi-Wan put away his lightsaber and fought his way back to a grip beside Anakin's. We can't afford the time to search for him. I'm sorry, Anakin. I know how much he meant to you. Anakin desperately fished out his comlink. R2, come in. He shook it and shook it again. R2 couldn't have been destroyed. He just couldn't. R2, do you copy? Where are you? Anakin. Obi-Wan's hand was on his arm, and the Jedi Master leaned so close that his low tone could be heard over the rising gale. We must go. Being a Jedi means allowing things, even things we love, to pass out of our lives. Anakin shook the comic again. R2. He couldn't just leave him. He couldn't, and he didn't exactly have an explanation. Not one he could ever give Obi-Wan anyway. There are so few things a Jedi ever owns. Even his lightsaber is less a possession than an expression of his identity. To be a Jedi is to renounce possession, and Anakin had tried for so long to do just that. Even on their wedding day, Anakin had no devotion gift for his new wife. He didn't actually own anything. But love will find a way. He had brought something like a gift to her apartment in Theed, still a little shy with her, still overwhelmed by finding the feelings in her he'd felt so long himself, not knowing quite how to give her a gift, which wasn't really a gift, nor was it his to give. Without anything of his own to give except his love, all he could bring her was a friend. I didn't have any friends when I was a kid, he told Alder, so I built one. And C-3PO had shuffled in behind him, gleaming as though he'd been plated with solid gold. Padme had lit up, her eyes gleaming, but she said at first, tried to protest. I can't accept him, she said. I know how much he means to you. Anakin had only laughed. What use is a protocol droid to a Jedi, even when it's upgraded as 3PO? Anakin had packed his creation with so many extra circuits and sub-programs and heuristic algorithms that the droid was practically human. I'm not giving him to you, he told her. He's not even really mine to give you, and I built him as a slave, and everything I did belonged to Otto. Cliegg Lars bought him along with my mother. Owen gave him back to me, but I'm a Jedi. I've renounced my possessions. I guess that means he's free now. What I'm really doing is asking you to look after him for me. Look after him? Yes, maybe even give him a job. He's a little fussy, he admitted, and maybe I shouldn't have given him quite so much self-consciousness. He's a worrier, but he's very smart, and he might be a real help to a big-time diplomat like, say, a senator from Naboo. Padme then extended her hand and graciously invited C-3PO to join her staff, because on Naboo, high-functioning droids were respected as thinking beings, and 3PO had been so flustered at being treated like a sentient creature that he'd been barely able to speak, beyond muttering something about hoping he might make himself useful. After all, he was fluent in over 6 million forms of communication. Then she had turned to Anakin and laid her soft hand along his jawline to draw him down to kiss her. And that was all he had needed, all he had hoped for. He would give her everything he had, everything he was. And there had come another day, 2 years later, a day that had meant nearly as much to him as the day they had wed, the day he had finally passed his trials, the day he had become a Jedi Knight. As soon as circumstances allowed, he had slipped away on his own now. no master over his shoulder, no one to monitor his comings and his goings in, so he could take himself to the vast Coruscant complex at 500 Republica, where Naboo's senior senator kept her spacious apartments. And he had then, finally, 2 years late, a devotion gift for her. And he had then one thing that he truly owned, that he had earned, that he was not required to renounce. One gift he could give her to celebrate their love. The culmination of the ceremony of Jedi knighthood is the severing of the new Jedi Knight's Padawan braid. And it was this that he laid into Padme's trembling hand. One long thin braid of his glossy hair, such a little thing of no value at all, such a little thing that meant the galaxy to him, and she had kissed him then, and laid her soft cheek against his jaw. She had whispered in his ear that she had something for him as well. Out from her closet had word R2-D2. Of course, Anakin knew him. He had known him for years. The little droid was a decorated war hero himself, having saved Padme's life back when she had been Queen of Naboo, not to mention helping the 9-year-old Anakin destroy the Trade Federation droid control ship, breaking the blockade and saving the planet. The Royal Engineers of Naboo's aftermarket wizardry made their modified R units the most sought after in the galaxy. He tried to protest, but she had silenced him with a soft finger against his lips and a gentle smile and a whisper of, "After all, what does a politician need with an astromech? But I'm a Jedi. That's why I'm not giving him to you," she said with a smile, asking you to look after him. "He's not really a gift. He's a friend." All this flashed through Anakin's mind in the stretching seconds before his calm link finally crackled to life with a familiar wheel, and his heart unclenched. "R2, where are you? Come on, we have to get out of here." High above on the wall there, that was supposed to be the floor, the lid of a battered Durasteel storage locker pushed aside by a dome of silver and blue. The lid swung up fully open, and R2-D2 righted itself, deployed its booster rockets, and floated out from the locker, heading for the far exit. Anakin gave Obi-Wan a fierce grin. Let someone he loved pass out for his life? Not likely. "What are we waiting for?" he said. "Let's go." From the invisible hands bridge, the ship's spin made the vast curve of Coruscant's horizon appear to orbit the ship in a dizzying whirl. Each rotation also brought a view of the lazily tumbling wreckage of the conic spire, ripped from the ship and cast out of orbit by centripetal force as it made the long-running fall toward the planetary city's surface. General Grievous watched them both while his droid circuitry ticked off the seconds remaining in the life of his ship. He had no fear of for his own life. His specially designed escape module was pre-programmed to take him directly to his ship, already primed for jump. Mere seconds after he sealed himself and the Chancellor within the module's heavily armored hull, they would be taken aboard the fleeing ship, which would then make a series of randomized micro jumps to prevent being tracked before entering the final jump to the secret base on Utapau. But he was not willing to go without the Chancellor. This operation had cost the Confederacy dearly in ships and personnel. To leave empty-handed would be an even graver cost in prestige. Winning this war was more than half a matter of propaganda. Much of the weakness of the Republic grew from its citizens' superstitious dread of the Separatists' seemingly inevitable victory, a dread cultivated and nourished by the CIS shadow feed that poisoned government propaganda on the HoloNet. The common masses of the Republic believed that the Republic was losing. To see the legendary Grievous himself beaten back in fleeing battle would give them hope that the war might be won, and the hope was simply not to be allowed. His built-in comlink buzzed in his left ear. He touched the sensor implanted in the jaw of his mask. "Yes?" The Jedi almost certainly escaped the conic spincer. The voice was that of one of his precious custom-built IG-100 series Magna Guards, prototype self-motivating humaniform combat droids designed, programmed, and armed especially fit to fight Jedi. "We recovered a lightsaber from the base of the turbo lift shaft before the spire tore free." "Copy that. Stand by for instructions." One long stride put Grievous next to the Neimoidian security officer. "Have you located them, or are you about to die?" I. The security officer's trembling finger pointed to a schematic of the invisible hands hangar deck, where bright blips slid slowly through Bay 1. "What is that?" It's the Chancellor's beacon, sir." "What, the Jedi never deactivated it?" "Why not?" I can't actually. Idiots. He looked down at the cringing security officer, considering killing the fool just for taking so long to figure this out. The Nemoidian might as well have read Grievous's thoughts spelled out across his bone-colored mask. If you hadn't, please recall my security console has been destroyed, and so I have been forced to reroute. Silence! Grievous gave a mental shrug. The fool would be dead or captured soon enough regardless. Order all combat droids to terminate their search algorithms and converge on the bridge. Wait, strike that. Lead the battle droids. Useless things, he muttered into his mask. A greater danger to us than to Jedi. Super battle droids and droid cuts only. Do you understand? We will take no chances. As the security officer turned to his screens, Grievous again touched the sensor implant along the jaw of his mask. IG-101, sir. Assemble a team of super battle droids and droidicas. As many as you can gather and report to the hangar deck. I'll give you the exact coordinates as they are available. Yes, sir. You'll find at least one Jedi, possibly two, in the company of Chancellor Palpatine and President Rayshield. They are to be considered extremely dangerous. Disarm them and deliver them to the bridge. If they are so dangerous, perhaps we should execute them on the spot. No, my orders are clear that the Chancellor is not to be harmed, and the Jedi. The General's right hand slipped beneath his cape to stroke the array of lightsabers clipped here. The Jedi will execute personally. A sheet of shimmering energy suddenly flared in front of them, blocking the corridor on the far side of the intersection they were treading across. And Obi-Wan stopped so short that Anakin almost slammed into his back. He reached over and caught Palpatine by the arm. Careful, sir, he said low. Better not touch it till we know what it is. Obi-Wan unclipped his lightsaber, activated it, and cautiously extended its tip to touch the energy field. An explosive burst of power flared sparks and streaks in all directions, nearly knocking the weapon from his hands. Rayshield, he said, move to himself. He said, move more to himself than to the others. We'll have to find a way around. But even as he spoke, another sheet shimmered into existence across the mouth of the corridor they just left, and two more sizzled into place to seal the corridors to either side. They were boxed in, caught. Obi-Wan stood there for a second or two, blinking, then looked at Anakin and shook his head in disbelief. I thought we were smarter than this. Apparently not. The oldest trap in the book, and we walked right into it. Anakin felt as embarrassed as Obi-Wan looked. Well, you walked right into it. I was just trying to give up. So now this is my fault? Anakin gave him a slightly wicked smile. Hey, you're the master. I'm just a hero. Joke some other time, Obi-Wan muttered. It's the dark side, the shadow of the Force. Our instincts still cannot be trusted. Don't you feel it? The dark side was the last thing Anakin wanted to think about right now. Or, it could be that knock on the head he offered. Obi-Wan didn't even smile. No, all our choices keep going awry. How could they even locate us so precisely? Something is definitely wrong here. Dooku's death should have lifted the shadow. If you've a taste for mysteries, Master Kenobi, Palpatine interrupted pointedly, perhaps you could solve the mystery of how we're going to escape. Obi-Wan nodded, scowling darkly at the ray shield box, as though seeing it for the first time. After a moment, he took out his lightsaber again, ignited it, and sank its tip into the deck at his feet. The blade burned through the thirstier plate almost without resistance, and then flared and bucked and spat lightning as it hit a shield in place in a gap below the plate, and almost threw Obi-Wan to the annihilating energy of the ray shield behind him. No doubt in the ceiling as well. He looked at the others and said, Ideas? Perhaps, Palpatine said thoughtfully, and as though the idea had only just occurred to him. We should simply surrender to General Grievous. With the death of Count Dooku, I'm sure the two of you can. He cast a significant silent glance at Anakin. Negotiate our release. He's persistent. I'll give him that, Anakin thought. He caught himself smiling as he recalled discussing negotiation with Padme on Naboo before the war. He came back to the part present when he realized that undertaking aggressive negotiations would prove embarrassing under his current lightsaber challenged circumstances. I say, he put it in slowly, patience. Everyone was at an eyebrow. That's a plan. You know what Master Yoda says, patience you must have until the mud settles and the water becomes clear. So let's wait. Obi-Wan looked skeptical. Wait. For the security patrol, a couple of droids will be along in a moment or two. For the security patrol, a couple of droids will be along in a moment or two. They'll have to drop the ray shield to take us into custody. And then Anakin shrugged, Anakin shrugged cheerfully, and then wiped them out. Brilliant as usual, Obi-Wan said dryly. What if they turn out to be destroyer droids or something worse? Oh, come on, Master. Worse than destroyers? Besides, security patrols are always the skin uses, little battle droids. At that moment, before those skinny, useless battle droids came marching toward them, one along each other, and each corridor clinking, along with blaster rifles leveled. One of them triggered one of its pre-programmed security commands. Hand over your weapons. The other three chimed in with enthusiastic barks of Roger, Roger, and a round of spastic head bobbing. See, Anakin said, no problem. Before Obi-Wan could reply, concealed doors in the corridor walls zipped suddenly aside. Through them rolled the massive Brontian wheels of destroyer droids, 2 into each corridor. The 8 destroyers unrolled themselves behind the battle droids, hallowed by sparkling energy shields, twin blaster cannons targeting the 2 Jedi's chest. Obi-Wan sighed. He was saying, okay, fine, it's the dark side or something. Anakin rolled his eyes. I guess you're off the hook for the ray shield trap. Though those same door rays marched 16 super battle droids to back up the destroyers, their armed cannons raised to fire over the destroyer's shield. Behind the super battle droids came 2 droids of a type Anakin had never seen. He had an idea what they were, though, and he was not happy about it. Obi-Wan scowled at them as they approached. You're the expert, Anakin. What are those things? Remember what you were saying about worse than destroyers? Anakin said grimly. I think we're looking at them. They walked side by side, their gait easy and straightforward, almost as smooth as a human's. In fact, they could have been human. Humans were 2 meters tall and made out of metal. They were long, swirling cloaks that had once been white, but now were stained with smoke, and what Anakin strongly suspected was blood. They walked with their cloaks thrown back over their shoulder to clear their left arms, where they held some unfamiliar staff-like weapon with 2 meters something long, something like the force pike of a Senate guard, but shorter, and with an odd-looking discharge blade at each end. They walked like they were made to fight, and they had clearly seen some battle. The chest plate of one bore around shallow crater surrounded by a corona of scorch. A direct blaster hit that hadn't come close to penetrating the other bore a scar from its cranial dome down through one dead photoreceptor, a scar that looked like it might have come from a lightsaber. The droid looked like it hadn't fought a Jedi and survived. The Jedi he guessed hadn't. These 2 droids threaded between the super battle droids and destroyers and casually shoved aside one battle droid, enough that it slammed into the wall and collapsed into a sparking heap of metal. The one with the damaged photoreceptor pointed its staff at them, and the ray shields around them dropped. He said, hand over your weapons, Jedi. This definitely wasn't a pre-programmed security command, Anakin said softly. I saw an intel report on this. I think those are Grievous's personal bodyguard droids, prototypes built to his specifications. He looked from Obi-Wan to Palpatine and back again to fight Jedi. Ah, Obi-Wan said. Then under the circumstances, I suppose we need a plan B. Anakin nodded at Palpatine. The Chancellor's ideas is sounding pretty good right now. Obi-Wan nodded thoughtfully, and the Jedi Master turned away to offer his lightsaber to the bodyguard droid. Anakin leaned close to the Supreme Chancellor and remembered. So you get your way after all. Palpatine answered with a slight, unreadable smile. I frequently do. As super battle droids came forward with electrobinders for the wrist and a restraining bolt for R2-D2, Obi-Wan cast one frowning look back over his shoulder. Anakin, with a sort of quiet, pained resignation that would be recognized instantly by any parent exhausted by a trouble-prone child. Where is your lightsaber? Anakin couldn't look at him. It's not lost if that's what you're thinking. That this was the truth. Anakin could feel it in the Force, and he knew exactly where it was. No. Where is it then? Can we talk about this later? Without your lightsaber, you may not have it later. I don't need a lecture, okay? How many times have we had this talk? Apparently, one time, even less than we needed to. Anakin sighed. Obi-Wan could still make him feel like about 9 years old. He gave a sullen nod toward one of the droid bodyguards. He's got it. He's got it. He's got it. He does. How did this happen? I don't want to talk about it. Anakin, he's got yours too. That's different. This weapon is your life. This weapon is your life, Obi-Wan. He did a credible enough Kenobi impression of Palpatine. This weapon is your life, Obi-Wan. He did an incredible enough and Kenobi impression that Palpatine had to smother a snort. You must take care of it. Perhaps, Obi-Wan said as the droids clicked the binders onto their wrist and led them all away. We should talk about this later. Anakin intoned severely. Without your lightsaber, you may not have it. All right. The Jedi Master surrendered with a rueful smile. You win. Anakin grinned at him. Anakin grinned at him. I'm sorry, what was that? He couldn't remember the last time he'd won an argument with Obi-Wan. Could you speak up a little? It's not very Jedi to gloat, Anakin. I'm not gloating, Master, he said with a sidelong glance at Palpatine. I'm just savoring the moment. This is how it feels to be Anakin Skywalker for now. The Supreme Chancellor returns your look with a hint of smile and a sliver of an approving nod. And for you, this tiny, trivial, comradely victory sparks of warmth and ease that relaxes the dragon grip of dread on your heart. Forget that you are captured. You and Obi-Wan have been captured before. Forget the deteriorating ship. Forget the Jedi-killing droids. You faced worse. Forget General Grievous. What is he compared with Dooku? He can't even use the Force. So now, for you, the situation comes down to this. You are walking between the two best friends you have ever had, with your precious droid friend faithfully wearing after your heels on your way to win the Clone Wars. What have you done? What happened in the General's quarters, and more important, why it happened is all burning away in Coruscant's atmosphere, along with Dooku's decapitated corpse. Already it seems as if it happened, and there's somebody else, as if you were somebody else when you did it, and it seems as if that man, the dragon-haunted man with a furnace for a heart and a mind as cold as the surface of that dead star, was really only been an image reflected in Dooku's open staring eyes, and by the time what's left of the conic spire crashes into the kilometers-thick crest of city that is the surface of Coruscant, those dead eyes will have burned away, and the dragon will burn with them, and you, for the first time in your life, will be truly free. This is how it feels to be Anakin Skywalker for now. This is done. That was a long chapter, I told you guys, and we are almost halfway done with this book. And where have you gone? Because that was a long chapter. I'm pretty sure I've been filming. Okay, I guess I've been filming for almost 40 minutes. That was a really good chapter, and I really liked it. I'm going to upload it now. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys next video. Peace.